Jason, how we doing? We streaming? We're going? Okay, folks, if y'all will settle in, we'll go ahead and gavel the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. This is the Tampa Heights Civic Association General Membership Meeting for November 19th, 2025. My name is Rick Fernandez. I'm the president of the association. Welcome. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We are Zooming. I don't know how many folks are with us tonight on Zoom, but in any event, if you're speaking tonight, as Serena will be and as Naya will, there you are, as Naya will be, we have two mics that we have to be attendant to. One is for inside the room. That's this guy right here. The other is this little puck-looking device that sits up here on the podium. This is for the folks that are out at home watching us on Zoom. So as you're speaking, please be aware that you've got two audiences. And if you take questions from the audience here, I'm going to ask you please to repeat the question, because a lot of times those questions can't be heard by the folks at home. All right. Do the best you can to summarize it just so they know what you're talking about. Fair enough? Okay. Also, you may have noticed when you walked in, we have a notice on the sign-in table about weapons not being allowed in the facility. If you happen to have walked in here with an AK and I don't see it, please go put it out in your car and get rid of it. This is a no weapons zone for purposes of our meetings. Couple of announcements. First of all, as I'm sure you're all aware, Christmas is creeping up on us very quickly. We have, there it is. Okay. We have a holiday potluck on December the 6th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. This is a joint venture between this Civic Association, the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association, and the Community Garden. It'll be hosted at the Community Garden beginning at 6 p.m. The rest of it, well, you can, I guess there's really not a lot of detail there. The Civic Association, both junior and senior, will be providing the main dish. I'm not quite sure I know what that's going to be yet. Probably pizza, maybe some other things. And beyond that, it's a covered dish, potluck. So folks that come are being asked to bring something for the group. All right. So again, mark your calendar. We have some flyers up at the table, and there certainly will be more announcements that go out about this as we get closer to the event. Again, that's December 6th, 6 p.m. I assume everybody knows where the community garden is? No? Okay, I see a couple of no's. Community garden is just north of us, about a block and a half. Right? What is it, on Francis? Yeah, on Francis. Right up against basically the interstate right-of-way. At Francis. Okay, easy to get to, and we'll be set up in the pavilion with lighting. And at least last year when we did this, it was a little bit chilly, so we had fires going. It's very pleasant, nice evening. Kareem? I'm sorry. We haven't made that arrangement. I'm not sure. Maybe Kitty Wallace and her group have. We have none. Right now, our commitment is to provide the food for the main dish, but I'll check with them on that. We have had in the past musical entertainment from the Blake High School Band, or alums of the Blake High School Band, which has gone over very well. So I'll check with that and see. Personally, I'd like to see them there. All right, so that's the holiday potluck. Elections. We're in election season, not just locally and nationally, but also right here in Tampa Heights. Our Civic Association board elections, we are in cycle now. The actual day of the election is at the general meeting, the annual meeting in January, which will be the fourth Wednesday of the month. We are still open for nominations for the slate. So if anyone who is a dues-paying member of the association would like to run for an office, you are certainly welcome to put your nomination in, but it has to be in by today. I'm going to state for purposes of this record by the close of the meeting tonight. All right. Once we close out tonight, the slate is closed. At the moment, we have a full slate. And I'm going to, by that, I mean we have a candidate for each slate, each position. And I'm just going to read through. First of all, president, myself, I'm not up for reelection. I'm on a 2-year term. I'm going into my 2nd year. First VP is Kareem Young, who's sitting right over here against the wall. Second VP is Nicole Pederica, who's here in the 2nd row. Taryn Sabia is our recording secretary. I believe she had a school commitment tonight for one of her kids. Corresponding secretary is Erin McKinnon, also not here, perhaps online. Jana Davis will be representing, or at least is running to represent, our Northwest Quad. Northeast Quad is Cedric Carrington, who is with us here in the 3rd row. Brian Seal, who's in the back row here with the cap, is Southwest Quad representative candidate. Southeast Quad is Christoph Van Winden. Hand up. Thank you, Christoph. And Naya Young Green will be the at-large candidate as of now. Parliamentarian also wearing 2 caps is Brian Seal. That's not an elected office, but Brian will be filling that role as well. So that is our current slate. We have somebody for each position. That's 12 members of the board. But again, if anybody else would care to run, it's open till the end of the meeting tonight. This one is not something I'm particularly happy about, and it won't affect most of you, but it'll affect some of us. The Florida Department of Transportation is starting work on their retention walls along Elmore between Robles and Columbus, and they're starting tonight at approximately 9 or 10 p.m., and that work is going to continue through the night until 5 or 6 a.m., and that's going to be for the next 3 or 4 nights. This involves jackhammers and other loud equipment, and it involves, houses shaking and crystal in your cabinets shaking. We've lived through this before, and it's going to happen again. Thankfully, Connie, I think it's a little bit further down the street. Hopefully won't affect us, but it's going to affect folks. Pretty much if you live between Robles and Columbus, and probably at least 2 blocks to the west of that, you're going to feel something that feels a little bit like an earthquake over the course of the next few days. There ain't no getting used to it. Just all you can really live with is knowing that it's got a beginning and an end, and it's finite, hopefully no more than 4 nights. That begins tonight at 10 o'clock, so you have that to look forward to. Now, for anyone who was here on October 9 for our candidate forum. Hey, Matt. You may remember, if you weren't here, you may remember the publicity that came out of it involving an occurrence after the meeting was over, a gentleman pulling a gun. Well, there's still litigation activity pursuant to that. If you're following that case at all, today, I got confirmation from the city of Tampa that the red flag hearing on Mr. Piggott is scheduled for 9 a.m. on December the 11th. That's the hearing to determine whether or not his weapons should remain in a restricted status. Right now, he's not allowed to have guns. December 11th, the judge is going to determine whether or not that restriction is going to remain permanent, at least for the next year. So that's the next thing that happens with Mr. Piggott. Okay, any questions on any of that? Nope. Anything online? Okay. So that takes us to our speakers for tonight. We have 2. We're very privileged. We have Naya Young and Serena Echols. I'll introduce Serena just before she actually gets up here to speak. Naya Young, I can almost say, doesn't require introduction at this point, but just briefly. Naya was just elected to represent us as Tampa City Council District 5 representative. Oh. And, tragically to an extent, you took the dais at a time when we're facing some fairly significant things in District 5. Ybor City being at the center of activity in that regard. So I'm sure there's been, kind of a trial by fire for you as a newbie on the dais. We've asked Naya to come to give us some thoughts on the election, on her experiences to date, all the minute or two that she's been on the dais, but a lot's been happening. And also to stand for whatever questions you may have about anything, really. So Naya, with that layout before you, come on up.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all again. Hey, Serena. You all are in for a great presentation. Serena did some lessons with our kids over the summer, and she is awesome and extremely knowledgeable. So you all are in for a really good treat. But also, if I haven't thanked you already, I know some I've seen already, but those who voted for me, thank you very much. This is my third week, so third week in. There's been a lot happening, but as to be expected. But it has been awesome. My grandmother gave me some good advice, and she said, make sure that each day you're still having fun and that you're learning each day. And so I'm taking that to heart. And that's what I've been doing. So it's been really good. Fortunately, I came in at a time before the end of the year where a lot of things are happening. A lot of people are wanting to get some things done before the end of the year. So it's been quite busy, lots of reading, but still, taking everything in stride. I do want to. I know you talked about Ybor. So in our last council meeting, I had made a motion for TPD and mobility to come to the December 4th council meeting to talk about things that are happening right now. So had a conversation with the chief about, what kind of, what security measures are happening right now, because the question that everyone's having is, are we safe? Are we safe? And the question is, there is a lot that's already happening, but I think that's important for public to know what is happening. So I asked them to come to the meeting to actually talk about what kind of security measures are we taking currently, and then also for mobility to come and talk about what strategies or what things can we do moving forward to ensure that it continues to be safe, and not just do something quick, but actually have a long-term, plan that we can actually follow, not just for 7th, but if we decide to, implement this in other areas in the city, that, so that it's safe for pedestrians, that it's safe for residents and, and business owners. So that's why I asked them to come just to present at the council meeting. And then from there, we're actually going to have a town hall. We haven't picked a location yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be in Ybor, where we're going to bring together, again, residents, business owners, people in the area that just want to come and weigh in and talk about solutions, long-term solutions for the area. So that's coming up, and I one of the things I always talked about was the importance of listening, and just having those open conversations. So that's why, one, we're, taking this in steps, making sure that people know that we've heard everything, we've seen emails, I've talked to a lot of people, and it is something that we're actually, wanting to making sure that people know that this is a priority, and we want to be sure that we have a good outcome that, again, it's not just a Band-Aid, it's something that we can actually adopt long term. So that's happening in Ybor. There is Oh, the council meeting tomorrow. Usually meetings start at 9 a.m., but we will all be at the Great American Teach-In. So we will be starting at 11 a.m., which means the meeting may run a little late, but it will be 11 a.m. And then normal time, other council meetings, it'll be not 9 a.m. And then, you can either come in person or you can join virtually, though you do have those options. Also, I have cards. They just came in, so they have my name and phone on. So if you and can I leave some with you? Okay, so I'll leave some so you can have. But also to get in contact with me, especially if there's something happening in the community, you need an answer about something, or if there's an event or something happening, Darlene, who is my legislative aide, would be the best point of contact because she is awesome and she makes sure to get everything that we can on the calendar and follows. And we actually just left the office because we've been following up on calls. And so her number is 813-310-7223. 813-310-7223. Darlene is awesome. A lot of times if you're talking to Darlene, I'm in the office too, so I can hear what's happening. But she is just really good with making sure that we're getting back to constituents. We were talking with someone today actually about some things just in the Tampa Heights area. So please, if something comes up, please call. If you don't get me, make sure you call Darlene or email, because Darlene also sees my emails too. So she is able to tell me whether I saw something or didn't. And also, I think that's it for right now. Is there any questions anybody wants to ask? And then also, I am probably, if not before the end of the year, at the top of the new year, something that I talked about during my campaign was wanting to do like kind of like listening tours to the different areas within the district, since District 5 is a very big district. And so I'm really going to be looking forward to coming back to meetings. Your neighborhood I talked about the importance of the neighborhood association meetings because you all are my connect to community. I can't be here all the time. So being able to be at meetings and hear what's happening or talking with the president if something comes up in a meeting that I can help to address. So I'm really looking forward to that. So look forward to me having more just going around to the different areas within the district. Yeah.
Questions? Matt, Matt can always go.
Great. I know you have approximately 15 months until the next election cycle. At this point, I got a prediction that you came up with like top 2 or 3 things that you're like, hey, like I have a very small period of time to do something or begin something because I have what you focus on. Kind of that time. Next question.
So I'm definitely getting one of the things is parks. So, and my reason for parks is also because it's a connection to youth. So one of my platforms for my campaign was youth, and for me, I see the direct connection between your parks and your youth. When I was growing up, your parks provided programs. And not you had your nonprofits, and you also had your parks, and you could go to your parks and whether it be swim lessons, whether you were doing cheering or all these different things. And so I'm really looking for, again, budget's already passed, but there still may be some opportunities for us to, invest in parks or see what parks we can invest some more in, just around the district. It's not necessarily something that we can check off, but I think it's really important to be able to build relationships with everybody within the city because that's how we're able to get things done. So, talking with the TPD, talking with your city staff, learning who does what, who is responsible for what, where can city council be more collaborative is something that's really important to me because if everyone just operates in their silos and we all do our own thing, then it's hard to get things done. So I've really been intentional with making sure that I'm meeting with a lot of the staff members, if not all the staff members, and hearing, okay, what are some things that you are working on right now? And then there's also some projects that Blake Gwen Henderson was working on that I have been looking into and seeing where they are, where she left off, and seeing how we can pick those back up before the end of the year.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Bertha Glover.
Hi, Ms. Bertha.
I've been very active lately when I was active at one point. But I have this question, I don't know if this is time or place. The government can talk about getting rid of the property taxes.
Um,
And that, I don't know, should bring it up here or not.
I will tell you, getting rid of the property taxes. So if you think of your police, your fire, our public safety, all that comes out of our property taxes. So But that is not a city council. That is not a city council. That's something that we would not be voting on. But there would be serious, in my opinion, some serious implications if we do that. Yeah. So there is actually, I don't know if it passed already, but what's his name? With the property appraiser's office, they had um I don't know if it was like a town hall or a workshops, but yeah, I don't, did it pass already? I can look it if you, I'll get your information and I'll look and I can look it up because they're having his office, the property appraiser's office was having like a town hall or workshop about property taxes, and just kind of the process and what's being talked about with in the conversation around the property taxes. I don't know if they already had that workshop or not, but I'll find out for you and so I can get you to the right person. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, he's really good. Hmm. Yeah, he did a webinar maybe a couple of months ago. Actually went during a campaign and it was talking about property taxes. But he's really knowledgeable and he could give you some more insight. Bob Enriquez. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
But the thing is,
Hmm.
here without a stand, and then they'll come back,
Hmm.
well, place out the property at third rate,
Hmm.
or some of us are homestead from the
Hmm.
division,
Yep, exactly.
you know.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. So there's you got to read the fine print with some of those things. So, but yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Yeah.
Other questions? I have one.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
I suspect you haven't had much time viewing faces.
Um, mm.
But I
Hmm.
specifically related to the shooting that occurred over the
Hmm.
weekend.
Hmm.
There's a lot of buzz in the community about
Yeah.
why it is that information is forthcoming about who the shooter was,
Hmm.
um, trying to bring this thing in for a landing.
Hmm.
And I understand that you're not in a position to speak to ongoing investigation, nor should you.
Hmm.
But is there anything that you picked up in your travels? I know you were out there talking to authorities, saw a picture of you on Facebook a couple of nights ago. But have you picked up anything along those lines about where that investigation is?
I haven't. What I know is because it's an ongoing investigation and because whoever the shooter was is, I guess, cooperating or they're actually, going through with the investigation. So they're not releasing the person's name. Um, you know, um, so one of the things that came up is people were saying, well, what happened with the gentleman, the young man with that drove his car into Seven, and we were able to know, exactly who he was, and so the explanation for that was that because they did an immediate arrest, and that's why we were able to know who the person was that was driving the car with this incident because you have stand your ground and open carry, and so it's not an immediate arrest, and so they have to actually go through the investigation, and then it goes through like the state's attorney's office, and so that's why it's not being released. That's the information that's being told to me, but I'm receiving the same thing that it's this ongoing investigation, and to protect the integrity of the investigation, they're not releasing. That's what has been told to me. Yeah. Hmm.
So the adjudication process is fair,
Hmm.
and clearly that's not your responsibility.
Hmm.
But transparency is
Absolutely.
consistent transparency.
Absolutely.
We're not seeing that right now, so that's what I think a lot of people concern flags us there to hide.
Mm-hmm.
Or are we consistently applying,
Mm-hmm.
the law or at least updating people with who has been charged, or
Mm-hmm.
who's involved in the shooting?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And when I spoke with TPD, I told them, I said, this is what I'm hearing, and this is why people are feeling the way that they're feeling because of X, Y, and Z. So I put it out there and said this is what's being said, so that it's not it's not like no one knows that this is how the community is feeling. I put it right. I said this is what the community feels, but transparency and accountability. I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
My last thing is where the exit right, the
Mhm.
open area, and
Yeah.
seeing the ground, that's just very dangerous space. And without clarity, right?
Yeah. I agree with you. I do.
Also,
I really think else you would have come here, that was basically like the vice president of the band. I'm going to look at our association. And thank you so much for the information here. We will be following the company text and releasing information.
Oh, good.
People have been trying for the legislation, the people that you need to talk to is state representatives, your senior and senator from the areas. Right now, the current legislation focuses on seniors and veterans to eliminate property tax for seniors and veterans. And there's still some conversation about non-school to be able to be property tax funding for school for parents. So it's brand new. It's committees have started, session doesn't start until March and April. So they didn't provide information because families, second to Wednesday at 6:00 is Zoom every month. Every living association person is welcome to join, but it is all the association in the city of Tampa sharing their challenges and concerns. And then it raises the occasion that they to work with them. But right now, the person is to make sure you're focusing on is your state representative and your senator. If there are now bills in Tallahassee to address the problem.
Matt, have you rethought?
Have you heard anything about the comp plan update? Zoning updates, because I know that Tampa Heights has unique requests and license to get in the way that is. And I don't know if that they enough or that's theirs. Or rumblings or updates of the government.
Great question.
Sorry.
No, it's a great question. I know right now we are still. I know they're still working on the comp plan. There are some in the agenda for tomorrow. There are some like code changes that are coming to council, but nothing. I don't think there's anything tomorrow that's just specifically on comp plan. I'm looking because I'm looking at the agenda in my brain. Yeah, I think tomorrow there's only just a couple of code changes, but they're still working on updating it. But that's a very great question. Mhm. 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 Mhm.
How they've been treated.
Mhm. 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 And one of the things that I stressed was the comp plan is not a one size fits all because there are some neighborhoods that want the density, that want the transit-ready corridors, and there's some that don't. And that's okay. That's fine. But we can't have the comp plan where it's just one blanketed approach. You have to make sure that it fits that neighborhood, fits the character of the neighborhood, that you're also protecting those neighborhoods. So that is something that I'm voicing my opinion on and that I'm fighting for to make sure that we don't just have one blanketed approach because every neighborhood is different. Every neighborhood is different. Mhm.
All right, Naya, thank you.
Thank you. If you have any questions or want to call me or email me, please let me know. Yes. So mine is 748189, and then Darlene is 723 Yeah, so anything in the neighborhood, please let me know, okay?
Yeah. And Matt, I'm reasonably sure you know this, but others might not. The comp plan saga will continue through the balance of this year into early next. The city council has a meeting scheduled in February to renew their discussions about the comp plan. So between now and then, I'm sure there's going to be a fair amount of etching that goes on. We have been at the board level, we've been in communication with Evan Johnson from the city. He's been here at our general meeting, and he's also been to our board meeting, and he's working with us and helping us to try to figure out places that Tampa Heights can find homes within the comp plan that will, assist us to make it more custom fit to our needs. So we're having that discussion, I think, with the right person and people, and the timeline is 2 to 3 months out. So
There's a lot of impact push for production that even if they down like saw or like at the coastal areas, but I do the topography of Tampa Heights, we are the non-flooding place.
right.
For some locations that makes sense. Push density, will get people up. There's some places where it does make sense, just like I was saying, like having density all locations does not make sense, right? But there's some locations that we get people a lot of areas and they were seeking density. It kind of takes years to make right the transit as well, design which parts of it.
Allison?
They took out forward, just because we need to be able to make sure that she's not that she has a person to be able to say that. Because the voices against it are more committed to very forceful to that. So I just
Ideas for some future speakers. So we'll our agendas for future general meetings attached to some of these issues. Okay.
construction happening. If you can go to the next slide, it talks about what traffic-related air pollution is. And so specifically for this network is to have sensors within about 100 feet of the roadway. So some people tell me like, oh, I have this really crazy smell in my backyard. Can you put a sensor here? And I'm like, unfortunately, the grant doesn't allow that, but I do give them resources to, you know, if they want to buy their own sensor to maybe track where that comes from. And pollutants are very complex. So traffic-related air pollutants is a mix of different types of pollutants. As we can see, these important pollutants like fine PM 2.5, that just means particulate matter that's really, really small. Then you have coarse particulate matter, which is like bigger particles like dust and pollen that you can see. And then carbon monoxide, nitrous dioxide, all of those things that come from combustion. So when we drive our cars, that exhaust that we see coming out, even though we don't see that it could be pollutant in the air, it has a lot of pollutants in it. And then there's some different health effects that come with being exposed to traffic-related air pollutants, including like coughing, sneezing, eye and throat irritation, increase of respiratory effects, also heart effects. And so if you already have health issues like asthma, those things can be exacerbated as well. If you can go to the next slide, this slide just shows, kind of like visualizes what PM 2.5 looks like. And so this is a piece of hair, human hair. So the large particles like dust, mold, and pollen is 1/10 of a hair. The small particles that I'm talking about, the PM 2.5, is 1/10 of that hair. And so if you guys can see how small the things that impact us can be and why it's so important that we monitor like more locally rather than just having these big monitoring sites out in the middle of nowhere where of course there might not be as much pollution. It's in the middle of a field rather than right next to the highway or even with the highway expansion or when we think about rush hour traffic. And I'll have some data about that. There are peaks in our sensors that we have. If you can go to the next slide. So I just want to talk about a little bit of my role as a part of the network and what the network does. So we do a lot of like, we develop the network. So reaching out to sites, saying, hey, are you interested? We wanted to get a lot of like, we tried to get the school system. It's a lot of complex politics when it comes to that, but we do have Seminole Heights Elementary School. We have different places like New World Tampa, which is a brewery. We have Tampa Heights Community Garden, which is right down the street. And we also have two different sensors to make it more accessible. We have ones that are with Wi-Fi that you have to plug in, and literally right on the other side of this building, we have the sensor up. And then we also have one that is a solar panel that we have at like Robles Park and that we have at the community gardens, that we have at Ybor Community Garden as well, because those places may not have electricity there or have Wi-Fi there. So we have two different networks, two different sensors in our network. And then also empowering the coalition meeting. So we have a quarterly coalition meeting that educates the site host and educate the people that are on the call to like understand what the data actually means, how to assess the data. And the most important part of our network is that you can go on your phone right now and look at our sensors and see the air quality right outside, right here in Tampa Heights. And that's very important because it's localized information that's specific to you all or specific to wherever the sensor is rather than a generalization. And you can see it peak and you can see it go down. And I'll show you some data about that as well. So if you can go to the next slide. So anytime I'm presenting data, this is kind of like a preface. It's more so that we need to talk about the data quality assurance and the data quality control. So it's easy to just get a sensor and put it up, but comparing that census data to other regulated from the EPA data is a very different process. So this slide is just explaining how the PM 2.5 that we collect from the data, ultimately that it has been tested. We went through a whole 6-month process to making sure that the data is accurate and assured compared to other air sensors that are more strictly regulated to make sure that they're up to the same standard. We don't want to give you guys a sensor that is not the same standard or the same as a different sensor. If you can go to the next slide, please.
And so this is one thing I love to do. It's a big part of what I do is I do a lot of education and outreach. Like right now, this is me doing outreach to educate you guys on the air sensors and on our network. As Naya said earlier, I came to Tampa Heights Junior Civic. I came here over the summer and did some education sessions with the youth to explain to them about the sensor. We even went outside and I showed them the sensor. We go to where the sensors are to educate people because we can't expect people. Like a lot of times people are reactive. They only care when they see it or they're being affected by it, but we're trying to be proactive by having long-term monitoring. So if something does happen, we can see it peak and we can see it go down. And then as I mentioned, we do coalition meetings. So we did a meeting about the built environment and clean air, and that's just like the PowerPoint that we did. So ultimately improving health literacy for youth and for adults and understanding how the built and natural environment like the highways and the interstate expansion can or may affect our health. If you can go to the next slide, this is one of the sensors that we have. So if you go to that link that says map.clarity.io/plan Hillsborough, this map will pop up. All those little circles, all those little dots, you can click it and that number, kind of like the weather, is called an AQI, the Air Quality Index. Also in the presentation, I have the chart of the Air Quality Index that's by the EPA. So it's like, if this number is this, what do I do? And so if you go to the website, this is what you will see. You will see on the left where it shows, you see Tampa Heights Community Garden, and it shows like what the AQI was when I took this screenshot. This is not active. This is when I created the presentation. And then in the middle, it shows all the different dots that are in our network. And even if you zoom out, you can see all across the world, all across the nation of where this specific air sensor is. Once again, this is the Clarity node sensor. We also have a purple air sensor that has a different website that has other monitors, other sites as well. Some of our sites have both, like this site has both because it has Wi-Fi and it also has a place where we can have a solar panel, but some sites only have one sensor. So you might want to check out which website to see which sensor is closer to you. And then over here, it shows the trend. So it shows 24 hours and it shows the peaks. So the air quality goes from like green to yellow to red to orange to red, the index. And so the colors just represent the recommendations of what you should do if the air quality is that during that time. You can go to the next one. So I'm going to point out this graph. We have a lot of different graphs on here, but this graph is very important. And so if you can guys kind of see the faint green, that is the yearly average from the EPA is 9 micrograms per meters cubed. So from the EPA, that's a safe level. That's why it's in the green zone. So as you can see, the blue in the circle, that's the Tampa Heights Community Garden. The diamond, that's like the lighter green, that is Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association, so that's this site. And then I also have Robles Park. So as you can see, they're fairly consistent, like together when it comes, because these sites are close to each other. You see some different variations. But as you can see, from the 25th to the 26th, there's a peak. And then also for the community garden, there's a peak around the 5th. And we can talk about that a little bit later as well. If you can skip through the last couple of slides, it just shows, well, actually, can you go back to July? If you can see on July, like 4th, 5th, between that time period, there's a peak. So that's how kind of we can say our air sensors are working, because what happens on the 4th of July? Fireworks, and there's also more congestion, there's more traffic because there's a holiday. So you can actually see, I remember when I looked at this sensor on the 4th of July, you can see that everything was like, it was either like orange or yellow. And I was like, wow. And then you can also see the smoke in the air too. And that's all the particulate matter. So I just want to give you a reminder that the data that I'm showing you right now is for PM 2.5. So that 1/10 of a hair, that's the specific pollutant that I'm talking about. Our sensors monitor 2 pollutants, NO2 and also PM 2.5. Those are traffic-related air pollutions that are mostly of concern because of the health implications. There are other traffic-related air pollutants, but our sensors don't necessarily monitor those because that takes a lot more money and a lot of different types of sensors. If you can go to the next slide and the next slide, and the next slide, those are just some things. So right here, I just wanted to point out some insights that we have. So at 7 a.m., it's a peak. As you can see right there, there's a peak. And what happens around 7 a.m.? There's a lot of different traffic. And this is not only from the sensor here, this is from all of our sensors. So this is like a collection of data from all of our sensors that basically show the average of PM 2.5 from for like on the day. So on the average of every single day from April 1st to July 29th, during rush hour, ultimately there's a peak. Then also around about 11 o'clock p.m., there's another peak, which I can assume is because of the construction. Like you just said, construction was going to start beginning tonight, or they have been doing construction for a while, but we can just make some inferences from the data to say, hey, on the 4th of July, it peaked. During 7 a.m. for all the sites, it peaked. You can be able to get that information and take it to your legislators and say, hey, I know some places have like staggering school starts, so make sure it's not a lot of concentration in one places of traffic. Or there's different laws and things that people do or recommend to try to reduce it, but the first thing that you need is the actual evidence. You need the proof and you need the data. And so that was one of the main goals of our network. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this slide specifically shows all of our sites. And then you see like in May, it's like in the end of May, it's all this yellow going straight down, which is the air quality. It's not bad, but it's not good. It's more like right above the good. There were wildfires in the state park from the 24th to the 25th. And that just shows how the wildfires carry pollutants all the way here. And we saw that with all of our sensors. And so when it comes to events, like for example, the 4th of July and this wildfire, we know because it was reported in the news. But some of the other peaks, you may have to use the inferences of what's going on during that time in the community to say, oh, there was a barbecue that was happening, or there was a this that was happening, or there was some type of festival that had fireworks, and that's what it caused it to peak. So it shows that our sensors are working because when there's big events, it shows. However, despite of that wildfire, 93.9% of the days for all of our sensors in our network were good air quality. They were in the green, as you can see right there. And then as you can see, it has the good, the moderate, the unhealthy, healthy, very unhealthy, and hazardous. And so we don't have any unhealthy to hazardous air from this data. Now, like I said, this data is from April to July of this year. That does not mean that previously things could have been different. If you can go to the next slide, please. And so, like I kind of mentioned earlier, some things that you can do with the data is like, let's just say you see that it's like orange or yellow. If you have asthma, you might want to limit your outdoor activity. Like I said, that chart has a whole list of recommendations for like sensitive populations, but also for yourself to say, hey, you know, maybe today I was going to go to the park today, but maybe I'll go tomorrow, or, you know, just different things that you could do, or choosing a carpool or transit to reducing the traffic, because we know a lot of these are traffic related air pollutants. And then also one of the most important things that I think is for community advocacy. So having evidence, having data in your hands to say, hey, look, we saw on this day this happened and we want to do something about it. I know some places don't even do fireworks anymore. They do like the little drone light shows because of the pollution that can come with it. And those are just recommendations that now that you have the data, and if it's a consecutive over time, you can say, hey, we care about our health, so we want to push for something different. And promoting awareness on social media is something that you could do at a very low level that does not take a lot of time and energy. You just ultimately like, you know, doing things different. And if you can go to the next slide, this is a chart that I continue to refer to. Even if you look this up on your phone, you could look up AQI categories and actions chart. And the EPA has so much evidence, but it ultimately tells you what to do when you look at that sensor and you see that number. So if you see a number between 0 and 50, it's good air quality. If you see a number between 51 and 100, it's moderate. So some people who have like, they are sensitive to air pollution and may sneeze a lot, you know, you might want to refrain from some activities. So this is really good for public facing to share with other people to show like, okay, I have this number, I have the data, I have this number is telling me what to do. Just like when it's raining outside, you have an umbrella or a raincoat. If you see that it's orange, you may want to wear a face mask, or you may want to not shop that day. You may want to shop a different day. And so you guys have this accessible as well. If you can go to the next slide. So this is just a lot of additional resources. So we have a website that has both the Clarity and Purple Air websites there. So if you go to that first website and you scroll down, you'll see both sensors and you can interact with it real time and click this sensor and click that sensor and see the air quality and see the peaks. And then we also have a guidebook if you want more information. Air Now is kind of like the weather channel. So, but it's for air quality. So it talks about AQI and health, and it gives some great recommendations, and it's from the government. And then I also have the Clarity map, so that diagram that I showed you guys, you can go to that link and all the air sensors in our network would pop up. I also have some stuff about the World Health Organization that's there, just in case you want to know about not just here in Tampa or here in the United States, but seeing about the air quality and air pollution worldwide and internationally. And then last, I have an introduction video about the Community Air Monitoring Network, Camden, just in case you're like, what did that girl say about this network? What is it again? This is a video that you don't have to read. You could just watch it. But also, if you go to the Camden website, that is accessible as well. And if you can go to the next slide, I don't know. Yes. So that's pretty much all. And this is right outside. That's our purple air sensor. It's really not that accessible because they're also doing that highway expansion right there. But it's also important that it's right there because we do sometimes, well, when I'm doing the quality assurance, I see peaks because of active construction. And so I'm open to any questions. I know that we're pretty much out of time. Yes. Thank you.
So my question is there anything that you suggest that we could do and determine as far as like specific area that they be able to better? Because these molecules are so tiny, I don't think a regular air filter would allow for it to stop, let's say, from us into our homes. So I know they got electrostatic air filters there. Like, just from your data and your knowledge, how effective and what and how effective are those efforts, and what would you suggest that we would do inside?
So I want to preface this with this is going to be solely opinion based. I don't have the data to say, oh, these air filters are better than these. I recommend plants to help clean the air because you're not like mass consuming things, because you also got to think about filters may have microplastics in them and things like that. But I have air filter at home, and the air filters, not the lights, but the ones that have the screens, they catch the pollutants. Yes, they're very, very small, but even if you change, you know how you change your air filter in your car and you can see it, that's because the car is always on the road and it's, catching a lot of those pollutants all the time. So I recommend the plants for one, because plants help clean the air, or plants counteract. So plants give some oxygen in your air, and it takes out CO2. That is a traffic related air pollutant. That's not one of the ones that we focus on, but it helps clean the air, not only just removing dust and particles. I'm also an environmental scientist, so I'm a little biased about that, but also I recommend the screen filters because I also work in HVAC with a different job. And those filters, that when we pull them out the machines, and making sure you change your filters too, change them in your house, change them in your air purifier, your air filter, like just making sure that you change them. But they do catch a lot of the particles. But if it's not clean, then it's just gonna like stock up and not be as effective. But I recommend plants and the actual screen filters because they do take out a lot of pollutants, not just the PM 2.5. Because like I said, those are small, but other pollutants are larger, and those are just as important to remove from your air.
Thank you for the presentation. I didn't know this was a thing. How do we stack up against other neighborhoods? Where are we on, have you seen, neighborhoods by the airport? There's a lot worse, or ones in, South Tampa better? I'm trying to start a competition, which is.
You're totally fine. I would say since the goal of our network and most of our sensors are with 1,000 feet of the interstate, a lot of the results are very similar. I am currently for a class, air pollution class. I'm taking our park sites like Robles Park, like Tampa Heights Community Garden, Ybor Community Garden. all of these sites that are green spaces and then comparing them to non-green spaces. And I'm trying to see, I'm still doing the analysis for that to see if there's a difference. Because then we can, there's of course historical data that says, okay, green spaces, like I said, get you a plant. It is cleaner air in green spaces. But I wanted to see here in Tampa, with the factor of traffic, with the factor of it being so close, does it still mitigate the green spaces? Because it was a, what month is that? It was 1 month in the data that showed that Tampa Heights Community Garden had higher rates than here, and it's right down the street, and that's a garden. But what was occurring during that time in the neighborhood, maybe someone was burning trash or something like that. So it's definitely how our human actions impact air. But for most of our sites, since they're all within the interstate, they have the same peaks of during rush hour, or like I said, in the 4th of July. Like even all the lines you saw, they were very, very close. But once again, those were all like in the Tampa Heights neighborhood. But even when I see from the other sources, one source that I can say, like one of them that is at a brewery, they do a lot of cooking there. So that kind of fluctuates a little bit, but they're not open 24 hours. So the averages kind of balance out a little bit. But ultimately, we're all doing good in the network. But I do want to see if there's difference between like a green space versus not a green space, because we do have a lot of parks and gardens in our network. So, yes, especially after they destroyed all the trees over there. Yes.
Brian?
This year, and saying, first, seems like that would have an effect on air quality. That was how they, now, you see that as well. Seasons and years, air quality was down, or is that really the fact that it's something to be assumed?
Gotcha. So this data doesn't show that because I haven't looked at that for this data, but I'm taking a air pollution course right now. And precipitation does help mitigate air pollution. So a good hypothesis, like you said, is during dry seasons when there's not a lot of precipitation, air pollution could be enhanced, because when you think about dust, when you have dust in water, the water kind of like puts the dust down so it's not everywhere, and so similar. And then a lot of factories or a lot of places there actually is to mitigate dust and all the pollution that can come from dust getting inside. They do have like water as a way of mitigating air pollution and mitigating dust. But that, I don't have the data for that, but I do think there's data to show that precipitation decreases air pollution. And so it's a good hypothesis to say the switch without precipitation, air pollution might increase. But then also, if people, as the climate is changing, patterns in the seasons are going to change as well. And that has an impact on air pollution as well. So it's a good question.
Is there a question? Serena, where is this heading? Right, you get all this data.
Mhm.
I don't even know how long these studies go on. You're young, you keep on doing this for a very long time. But eventually, this data winds up on somebody's desk and somebody's being asked to take action on it? Or is this just a curiosity seeking endeavor? I don't understand where you're going.
Gotcha. So initially, the network is to empower community members. It's ultimately to say, hey, you guys have concerns about the highway, you have concerns about pollution, or even about drought, precipitation, about these things. But in order to get anything done, you have to actually see the patterns of the air pollution being better or being worse. And ultimately, it was just to enable the community to have localized data for their air quality and put it in sites. So ultimately, it's up to you guys what you all want to do with the data and seeing that, okay, this is a spike, this is a peak, this is this, or how can we take this higher up, if that makes sense. But this is more like the preliminary, at least getting the devices out there and seeing what's actually going on. Because just because you're coughing or sneezing doesn't mean that it's related to a traffic related air pollutant. It can also just be you have mold in your house. But we want to make sure that we have the data to prove if there's something going on or if there's not something going on. So to have like similar to the weather app, to having something localized, where residents can just go on their phones and look at the air quality is the purpose of this network. And then moving forward, then going forward from there. Like they said about the listen, it's more, this is what it's saying. What do you think about this? And what there, it's more, you can't, because numbers talk. So.
A little after me, this will be. I'm trying to be circumspect about using this word, what's the only thing I can come up with. I'd like to figure out a way to weaponize this information for discussions with agencies like the Department of Transportation.
Mhm.
I don't know that this has matured to the point where that can happen. But example, it's not at all unusual to have the Department of Transportation come to a community meeting in a space like this, if they have, try to sell you on the idea that making the road wider, increasing the capacity and having more cars running through the neighborhood at a faster speed, that's actually better for us than simply keeping the road as it is and maybe finding some alternatives to cars so people can, be on a bus or a rail or something else. But somehow capacity increases and more cars has been sold to us as a way to keep air pollution low. That sounds like bull to me, but that's what they said. I don't have any data. I have common sense. I don't have any data to tell me.
Now you do. You saw rush hour.
Do I have data that suggests increased capacity? And you have cars running through the neighborhood at a higher rate of speed. And the point is, they're not sitting around at idle, right? Supposedly spewing off more of their toxins. When they come through fast and keep moving, but somehow that's better for us. And that has never made sense to me, but that's still what they try to sell. And we haven't really had the data. Maybe that's where you're going with this. Maybe that's eventually the weapon we need so we can actually communicate with points on a map or points on a grid. I don't know. That's a comment or a question. But do you have anything to say to that?
I have someone that you can talk to. My professor, Dr. Stewart, she's an expert in air quality and air pollution. So she has way more resources and tools and ways to say, okay, this has been proven or this has not been proven, or be able to know what is capable with the data that we have, to see if the data that we have can answer your question and can be used to advocate for the needs, or to even to prove like, hey, this is wrong or this is right. Or because unfortunately, if it might be a reactive thing where after the highway expands and the sensors are up, then the air quality gets worse. And so it's like now people want to pay attention and says, hey, we have the data before you guys expanded the highway, it was like this. That's this data. And then after you expanded the highway, it's like this. But our network is how you have the data to have the evidence to say this versus that ultimately. Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah.
It's a funding source. State grant, federal grant, private grant.
From my understanding, it's a funding source with the EPA, but it's a grant with the Planning Transportation Organization. So the TPO, the Transportation Planning Organization of Hillsborough County, and USF wrote a grant together to the EPA to get this funding for this network.
Serena, thank you very much. That's impressive. What I was going to ask you is how in the world did you get into this? I mean, it's just.
So also, like, industrial contamination, all that, water contamination, pollution, all that.
So if I had asked you when you were the 6-year-old Serena, what do you want to be when you grow up? Is this where? This what? Oh, okay. All right. That's kind of related, actually, you know? All right. All right. Well, listen, thank you all very much for coming. Are there any questions or any comments for the good of the order? Brian? Sure.
I've seen the email.
This is Brian Seal, our immediate pastor.
The Southwest Quadrant parking regulations. So the city is implementing one side only parking in the Southwest Quadrant, which is west of Florida, south of Columbus. And they finally put a date to that. That is December 1st. That week they will be installing signage. So, yes, Matt.
I have a question, another question. When they were discussing about, like, so again, you know, what's in the street, the problem that often happens too, is that people park in weird spots. Is there any way to get striping down? It's like, hey, we're gonna park on this side of the street, and let me suggest you park in between these lines so that you don't get one person kind of screws up the rest of the ride.
So the city was reluctant to stripe for a couple reasons. One just being cost of implementation. So they're putting signs up, and so it's going to stagger each block. So half a block is going to be one side, and the next half is going to be that. And it's going to switch over at the street. So it kind of allows a chicane to help slow traffic down as it goes. We work to make sure it was in a pattern that preserved as much on-street parking as possible. But along with that, the second reason for them not specifically striping spaces or other delineations was if you look at some of the state regulations for on-street parking come into play too. There's some state statute on that that the city kind of refers to. And some of those things are like within 10 feet of a driveway or within certain distance of other things. If they actually went out and striped the exact spots according to all the regulations, it would drastically reduce the realistic parkable space. And so, yeah, so the signs will help provide a guide, you know, kind of like an arrow, like, you know, no parking this way or park, which I don't know exactly what the sign's going to be. Sometimes it's park only between these arrows, but when they go up, if you're kind of between there, the city will kind of then back off on so strictly enforcing closeness to driveways and other obstacles. I mean, I think you can't park in front of a fire hydrant still, but beyond that, that was kind of their rationale was like, well, we're doing this, we're losing parking spaces, but we're not going to stripe because that's going to, in effect, take away the majority of your feasible parkable space.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. There's nothing else, folks. We're adjourned. Remember, December the 6th, 6 p.m. at the Garden. Be down there for that potluck. Look forward to seeing you there. Bertha, yes.